And here we go.
Hey everyone, my name is Josh and I am an addict.
Hey Josh.
Hey Josh.
Welcome to GRCNA 39.5, New Possibilities Arise, and welcome to our workshop on building relationships and networking. Regarding anonymity, when joining a virtual meeting, you will need to keep your video turned off to guarantee your anonymity. If you turn your video on, you are choosing to be seen by other participants. You can also change your name or switch to first name plus last initial to protect your identity. Scroll down, please. Let's open with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer. Silence. God, grant me the serenity, accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And wisdom to know the difference.
All right. Welcome to the Georgia Region's first virtual convention, GRCNA, GRCNA 39.5, New Possibilities Arise. That is our theme. Our intentions for this virtual convention is to make available to our fellowship a weekend of recovery, celebration, and fun. We hope that all addicts receive the NA message of recovery while they are participating in this event. It is our hope that the message we carry may truly let everyone know that NA is a place to recover and that no addict seeking recovery need die from addiction. Workshop participation guidelines. Please dress appropriately on camera. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you're asked to unmute by the host or co-host. If you have a question or need general assistance during the workshop, please contact the host or one of the co-hosts via direct message in the chat. If there is time after our workshop speakers finish, participants may have an opportunity to share their experience, strength, and hope on the workshop topic. If you would like to share after the speakers are finished, please raise your virtual hand. Your virtual hand can be raised by going to the reactions window on your computer or by going to the more section on your phone. If you will be called on to share and unmuted or asked to unmute yourself by one of the hosts if time permits. Please limit such shares to 3 to 4 minutes. I have asked a volunteer to read. Scroll on up. If Angelo, would you like to read how it works?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, family. Angelo Addict.
Hey, Angelo.
How it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1. We admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. We humbly asked Him to remove all shortcomings. 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. We continued to take personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you for reading.
Thank you for asking.
All right. Let's see here. We have a hand raised, so let's see if Marvin, since you got your hand raised, if you would like to read the 12 traditions.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. The 12th editions of NA. We keep what we have only with vigilance. And just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are strong node that would tear us apart, all will be well. One, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. Two, for our group purpose, there's but one ultimate authority. A loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Three, the only requirement for membership, desire to stop using. Four, each group should be autonomous except the matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. Five, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. Six, an NA group are never endorsed, financed, or lend an NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. These problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Seven, every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contribution. Eight, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service center may employ special workers. Nine, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the NA name ought never be drawn to public controversy. 11, our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. Every mind is to place principles before personalities.
All right. Our first speaker today is Holly H. from Laguna Niguel, California. Is that how you say that? Holly?
Yeah, it's from Laguna Niguel, Niguel.
Okay.
So,
and Holly, for 25 to 30 minutes, I'll turn it over to you at this time to share on the topic. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you so much. My name's Holly and I'm an addict. And I'm really excited to be here today and terrified at the same time. Me sharing in a big group like this always makes me just extremely nervous. Makes my hands sweat and my heart beat fast. You know, I go to this 7 a.m. meeting every morning that I truly love. And one of the people there is involved with this convention committee. And he heard me sharing one morning that the very first convention I ever went to in 1983 was GRCNA 2. And he said, you know, why don't you send me something and we'll see if maybe we can get you on the convention. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever. Because I never expect to be called to speak. That just is so far from what my life was like when I was out there using, because nobody wanted to talk to me when I was out there. I was a little bit too crazy to hang out with. And, you know, when I got clean in 1982, I know that the topic of this workshop is building relationships. And I didn't have any relationships when I got clean. You know, I mean, I was married, but he and I didn't really have a relationship. We used together. I met him in a bar, for God's sake, you know, and that we used real well together. After we got clean, we didn't have a whole lot in common because that's what we did, was we got loaded. So we ended up getting divorced about 3 years after we got clean, because he got clean too. He's got like 39 years clean now. Unfortunately, I don't. I wish I could say I did, but I don't. But when I first got clean, you know, one of the things I heard when I first came around and was, don't get in any relationships for the first year. And I know that they're talking about romantic relationships, but I kind of took that to mean no relationships. And what I have learned is that I have to have relationships if I want to grow in my recovery. The first one and the most important one, and the one that's still probably the most important to me in my recovery today, is I had to develop a relationship with a higher power, which I did not have when I got clean. I grew up in Nashville. Y'all can probably hear the Southern accent, especially since most of y'all are from Atlanta and that area. And churches are like 7-Elevens in Nashville. There's one on every corner. And I grew up in a religious, I mean, we varied between two different churches. We either went to the Methodist church, which is kind of laid back, or to the Church of Christ, which is really quite strict. So I had this very schizophrenic religious upbringing when I was little. And when I got here, I had no relationship with a higher power. I had thrown my relationship, I had thrown my God in the trash can years before, because my belief was that there was no way that there could be a loving, caring higher power if all of the stuff that had happened to me in my life, with all of the crazy insanity of my using. I mean, I was widowed when I was 21, when I had a 10-month-old daughter because of this disease. My second husband beat me like a punching bag because of this disease. And my third husband and I tried to kill each other drinking because of this disease. And, there were so many other things that had happened, the arrests and just the insanity of being out there and trying to use as long as I did really hampered any sort of relationship with a higher power. So the first relationship I had to build was with my higher power. I had to find one first, come to believe in something that would work for me, not that angry, vengeful God that I had grown up with, but something that was really loving and caring and was going to help me to stay clean. First thing was really you guys. Y'all kept me clean until I was able to develop a relationship with my higher power. And that was the second most important relationship in that first year, was I had to develop a relationship with the other members of Narcotics Anonymous. And we were really small in Nashville back in 1982. There were only like 3 meetings a week. And so we all knew each other. I mean, we all knew everybody that was in the fellowship. And we did everything together. We partied together. We hung out together. We went out and ate after every meeting. I mean, it was like we formed a family. That's why I introduced myself to you guys as Hey Family, because you guys became my family of choice. And I still have to work on those relationships in the program today, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I had to work on my family relationships. I didn't see my family much the first few years I was clean because they still drank, and it was just too uncomfortable for me to go over there and hang out with them. So I made you guys my family, and I saw them on special occasions until I was able to get a little bit of time under my belt, and they came to realize that, don't ask Holly to pour you a drink. Don't ask Holly to go hang out and do stuff that's going to be detrimental to her. They still, I'm sure my sisters still are like, but you weren't that bad. But they weren't in me. They weren't in my head and in my heart. They don't know how crazy I was. Because no matter how much you try to explain to somebody how crazy it was when you were out there and how crazy you feel because you're an addict, they just don't get it. They just don't get it, I had to develop relationships with the people that I worked with, which was hard to do because I'm a nurse, and being a nurse and being around drugs, which was part of my job, people get kind of leery when you tell them that you're an addict. And you've got your hands in the medication drawers, you know? They're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. So the way I got around that, to be honest, was I worked in treatment for years because we didn't give the kind of drugs that I like to take when I was working in treatment, you know? And I developed some relationships with the people that I worked with in treatment. And I've, you know, since I've gotten clean again this time, because I did relapse. I relapsed with 12 years clean, and I came back after 3.5 years. So God willing and the creek don't rise, I'm coming up on 23 years clean. And in that 23 years, I've gone back to school and gotten my RN. And I had to really work on my relationships being the person in charge, because believe it or not, I ended up the director of nurses of this little outpatient surgery center. And being the person that's in charge is really difficult and not much fun. And believe it or not, I didn't have a lot of people that really, well, they just were such a cliquey little group that they didn't like me a whole lot, but I still tried to make as good a relationships with them as I could, because, you know, I spent more time there than I did with anybody else. Kind of using the Living Clean book as an outline, guys, because there's a whole section in there on relationships. So I'm looking at the little bullet points in there. And the next one that came up is family. I mean, being a parent. Because I got clean when my daughter was 7 back in 1982, and she's 46 now. And, you know, we had mothers and daughters can have some real difficult relationships, real difficult headbutts, and we had those. We had some horrible knockdown, drag out verbal fights when she was a teenager. I was afraid she was never going to like me. She was just, you know, she was a teenager. And she didn't particularly like me telling her what I thought was best. But, you know, because I've been so consistent with her through the years, she's honestly my best friend today. You know, she and I do so much together, and we spend so much time together. And I have a granddaughter, which I never thought was going to happen. Oh my God, I never thought I was going to get old enough to have a granddaughter. And I have a 19-year-old granddaughter that has never seen me loaded. And she and I have a really, really good relationship because all of those things are possible, because I go to meetings, because I work the steps, because I talk to my sponsor, because I pray every day. I don't know how many times I said a little prayer right before this meeting started, you know, just, dear God, please help me to carry a clear message of recovery through Narcotics Anonymous, because that's all I can do, you know? Being of service, carrying the message, those are the things that have given me the ability to develop relationships that I never, ever expected to have when I was out there using. I just wanted to get loaded. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to share any intimacy with anybody. I didn't want to do anything except get loaded. You know, I was just in a meeting just a little while ago, and it was a Living Clean book study meeting, and we read the section on sex, which is always fun in a co-ed meeting, you know? And we talked about intimacy. And that is one of the biggest gifts I think I have gotten in recovery, is the ability to be intimate with somebody else, not sexually, but to be intimate with how I feel and what's going on with me and what's important to me and what scares me. You know, the things that God forbid, I never talked about any of those things when I was out there using. That's why I used, so I didn't have to talk about that kind of stuff. So I didn't have to feel anything. So I could just be a vegetable or as close to it as I could get without actually topping over the edge of death, you know? This last year has probably been one of the best, believe it or not, has probably been one of the best things that could have happened for me with my relationships, you know, because I was going to maybe 3 meetings a week before the pandemic happened, before the lockdown. This is my 3rd meeting today, and I'll probably go to my 5 o'clock sponsorship meeting, which happens 5 days a week for me. I have grown so much closer to the people in my recovery family this last year than I ever expected to. You know, I go to that 7 a.m. meeting. I don't know those people, but I know those people in that meeting. You know, and I go to a noon meeting and it's a little tiny meeting, but those people are people I love so dearly because I see them almost every day. And we have to get intimate with each other because it's only like 6, maybe 9 people on a good day. And then I go into my sponsorship family. I mean, I've loved my sponsor and I've known a few of my sponsee sisters, but not in any sort of intimate way. And when the pandemic started, my sponsor started a meeting and we see each other 5 days a week at 5 o'clock Pacific time, every day. And I have grown closer to those women in that meeting than I've ever grown to any group of women at a women's meeting. Because I've gone to women's meetings. I've gone to, you know, every week, go to the meeting, see them once a week. Hi, it's great to see you, bye. But I see these women every day. And we call it a highly unusual Narcotics Anonymous meeting because we talk about things that you don't talk about in a regular meeting. You know, we get down and dirty in this meeting, and we have developed this amazing group of miracle sisters that those women this year have pretty much saved my life. All of y'all have saved my life this year. You know, I'm like in my late 60s and I'm retired this year. So I sit at home by myself, looking at the 4 walls where I live, unless I'm on a meeting. And to keep myself from just going completely insane, because believe me, guys, that the analogy I use for my disease is like, it's like I've got a station wagon full of 3-year-olds in my head. You know, he touched me. I gotta pee. I'm hungry. When are we getting there? You know, oh my God. You know, I mean, it's like there's this insane group of preschoolers in my head all the time, unless I do what I'm supposed to do in these rooms, you know, unless I keep going to meetings, even with time clean, unless I pray, unless I talk to my sponsor, you know, unless I work the steps. Those things have given me an opportunity to develop relationships that I never expected to have. You know, when I walked in these rooms, I just wanted to quit hurting and quit getting arrested. You know, I was tired. And today I wake up and I'm excited about my life. You know, yeah, I still sit here and look at 4 walls, watch way too much TV, read too many trashy romances, but I'm not getting loaded, you know? So I'm just really grateful to be here. I'm so glad y'all are all here. And I've got some friends that showed up on this meeting that I told about, my noon meeting, and they showed up to support me. So thank you so much. And the people from my 7 a.m. meeting that I see on here too. I love you guys. Y'all are amazing. And all of the people that I don't know, but I do know you, because if you're like me, you need to freaking be here. I can't do this by myself. Absolutely cannot do it by myself. I need y'all desperately. So I love y'all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Holly.
You.
All right, so moving on to our next.
Thanks for sharing, Holly.
Moving on to our next speaker, to Luis.
Hi, everyone. I'm ready. Okay.
Rock and roll.
I'm Luis, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Luis.
I live in Chicago, and right now you may notice I'm in the sunshine because I can see the western horizon for the time being, but I'm going to be losing that view soon as a building gets built up. So anyway, I'm going to move and sit over here. I'm really grateful that I was asked to speak here. Thank you for the programming committee for doing that. And I was just puzzled as to why they did ask me, because I am really awful at networking in a professional context. When people hire me, which isn't very often, I'm a consultant, and I've never been very good at remembering names or anything like that, you know, but today is actually an anniversary of sorts. And to give you a sense of the power of Narcotics Anonymous, I live in Chicago now, but I got clean in Washington, D.C. And if you ever go to meetings in Washington, D.C., they hand out little phone books with names on them, names and phone numbers on them. Well, I walked into my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting on this very day in 1987 in Washington, D.C. And to give you a sense what the world was like in 1987, it was a little conference room at the Georgetown University Hospital. And I remember the meeting very, very clearly, and it was really smoky. It was just really smoky, which suggests that when I got clean, they were still smoking in hospitals, right? So that's what things were like when I got clean. And at that very meeting, they gave me this. And one thing I love about Zoom meetings is we've got some show and tell things. They gave me this very meeting. And to give you a sense as to how tight this fellowship is and was, page 1, Leah H. is still clean, Chris is still clean, Susie Mack is still clean, Mark J. is still clean, Bob J. is still clean. There may be people you all know, Jen Seelan, you may know. He was at my first meeting. Raphael S., my first sponsor, he's still clean. Bob J. is still clean. So there's 10 people who are at my very first meeting on March 5th, 1987, in this book and several afterwards, who are still clean. And that was only possible because Narcotics Anonymous welcomed me just like we welcomed them. And you know, I was in my 20s. I mean, we were all in our 20s at the time, and I got clean a couple months later. I relapsed in April of the end of April, and I got clean April 30th of 1987. So I'm coming up on 34 years. And, you know, back then, I find myself in a room that was smoke filled, and I didn't smoke cigarettes. I was mainly a pothead, but I certainly did a lot of drugs. And I was welcomed really for the first time. And I'd spent my entire life trying to fit in. You know, I'm a gay man. I grew up as a gay boy, very closeted, you know, never really felt a part of it. You know, I mean, I'd like to say that's why I use. Well, really, the reason why I use is because I'm an addict, and The only excuse I needed to use was that I was awake, and I used, it didn't matter if I was happy or sad or depressed or celebrating, I was using, and I couldn't stop. And NA showed me how to stop. And NA doesn't have a promise, except one promise, but we do have a message. And that message is any addict can stop using drugs, lose a desire to use, and find a new way to live. And it's that new way to live that I have cherished so much in Narcotics Anonymous. And it didn't just give me a new way to live, it gave me a new bunch of people to be friends with, because many of those people I named, I'm still friends with today. And it's really astonishing what Narcotics Anonymous has done. For someone like me who never remembers people's names, who never, is very, isolated, and, I just kind of stay in my own little world, even though it would be to my advantage if I got out and networked to find some work, which is how they do it these days, but I've never been very good at that. So it's really been an amazing journey for me. I think the key in addition to being a part of a fellowship where there was only one requirement for membership, and yeah, I don't want to use, and it's always served me well here, is the step work, because especially by the time I got to the 8th and 9th step, and to me, the 8th and 9th step are more than just making an amends. They're about fixing broken relationships, wherever they're broke. And part of fixing broken relationships requires me to go through the earlier steps, 4 and 5. 5 really, for the inventory 5, I really had to understand the exact nature of my wrongs, and then 6 and 7, I had to learn to be at peace with who I am as a now an out gay man, and then 8 and 9 allowed me to use that understanding and my acceptance of myself to learn how to relate healthily with other people. And that's really what the 8th and 9th step gave me. I learned, for example, that I don't have power over people, By the way, I've never been one of those people who said, I'm powerless over everything. I don't buy that. I can tear this book up if I wanted to pay the price of losing the book, right? I do have power over certain things. It helps me to understand where that power is and how much it costs me to exert that power. But one thing I don't have power over is other people. And that has been a very important posture for me when I'm building relationships and learning how to be healthy about those relationships. And the main lesson being, I don't place expectations on people, because I understand that I'm not perfect and they're not perfect. And it's best for me to be at peace with whatever they're like. And frankly, the 8th to 9th step for me was mainly about forgiving others than it necessarily was asking for forgiveness. My final, and I've only done that step a couple of times because the 10th step has really helped me, keep accumulating amends. I haven't had to do that very often on the because of the 10th step, and but when I have done the 8th to 9th step, I've done maybe 10 4 steps, so I'm working the steps. In fact, I'm getting ready to start another one. My last 8th to 9th step dealt with my mother more than anything, and I grew up in a fairly affluent family. I wasn't physically abused, but I was mentally abused by a mother who was never satisfied with her son and about anything. And I was just barraged with criticism, from the time I was a little boy. And she had a very painful death. She had breast cancer that metastasized to her jaw. So she spent the last few years of her life without a jaw, and oh, she was one bitter woman, and it was really awful. And she left a lot of pain on a lot of us survivors. But yet she died in '96, and I found myself bad-mouthing her for years. And I know this is a tangent, but I'm going to get back to it. And when I was going through the 8th and 9th step again, must have been in 06 or 07. By the way, I went through the steps when the workbook came out in 07, and it took me a year to do every step. So by the time I got to the 8th and 9th step, I found myself very troubled by the fact that my mom had been dead for 10 years, but I couldn't talk about her without bad-mouthing her. And that really bothered me. And so I had to forgive her. And that was my 9th step for her, was to recognize that she wasn't a perfect mother, but she gave me a lot of gifts. She gave me a lot of appreciation in art and culture. She had a wonderful sense of family. She taught me a lot of good things. And after praying for a few months about my mother, I finally forgave her, and I don't badmouth her anymore. And that's what the step process has done to fixing a broken relationship, which is so important of networking and building relationships, is to now, when I'm with my siblings, they badmouth her, but I don't. I don't badmouth my mom anymore. And that's an example of how learning how to do the 8th to 9th step for me has given me tools for how to build relationships with others. And in NA, it's worked really well. I've been blessed, I suppose. I've had long-term clean time in 2 communities. I got clean in DC. I moved to Chicago in 03. And, you know, as a result, I still have dear friends in DC, and I've accumulated a whole bunch of other friends. And the longer I've stayed clean, the more often people I've become close to, they move, go to different parts of the country, go to, you know, move out of the country, do all these other things. And so, you know, having long-term recovery in 2 communities has made World Conventions really great, because I see a lot of those when I go there. And this sun is driving me nuts. I'm going to move my table over here. And Holly really, by the way, I love what Holly had to say. It was really a wonderful lead. And you know, I am really grateful that I am a member of Narcotics Anonymous, because a lot of people who aren't member of Narcotics Anonymous do not have a perfectly good excuse for getting on Zoom every day to see several of their best friends all over the world, right? And not only do I have long-term recovery in 2 communities, I've done a lot of service at region, world, and zonal level. And so I can get on Zoom and see dear friends from all over. Last night, many people may know Lib from New Zealand. She spoke at my home group. You know, here we are Thursday night, 8 o'clock in Chicago, North City, and she's talking from tomorrow. It's 3 p.m. her time in New Zealand when she's speaking to us. And this is what has been so wonderful about this technology here. We are starting to go back to in-person meetings. I am not, you know, it's kind of weird, you know, when we were all adolescents, we used to lie about our age to get, you know, drinks and booze and whatever. But ever since, we've pretended we're younger than we were so that we would seem that way. Now I want to lie about being older than me again so that I can get a vaccine, right? And I'm not 65, I'm 60. And, you know, I got clean when I was 23. And so I'm not eligible for a vaccine yet. Illinois has been kind of slow at it, especially Chicago and Cook County. I live in Chicago. Our vaccines are still limited to people over 65. And so I'm waiting for the vaccine to allow me to get out a little more. But you know, meetings are starting to open up a little bit, and but I can tell you one thing: this ain't going away. Zoom is not going away because it has brought too many benefits. My region has seeded a virtual area. So we now have a virtual area part of our service structure. And so, you know, they're going to be faced with the challenge, I know, of what happens if a non-virtual meeting wants to join their area. Uh-oh. Because NA is struggling with how do we handle virtual groups and areas in our current service structure, but that's a question for you service junkies. So, and what virtual stuff has done for service has been unbelievable, what it's allowed us to do in service. You know, just the amount of PR we're able to do virtually, how many institutions we're able to get into, how many professionals we're able to talk to. I do a lot of service workshops. I actually did one for the Southeast Zonal Forum several months ago on consensus-based decision-making. Some of you may have seen that. I'm actually doing it again on Sunday for an area in Southern England. And so would not, unless they want to pay my travel to Southern England to give a 90-minute workshop, I guess I could ask them next time. Zoom ain't going away, at least not in service. And I'm really grateful for that. I guess, you know, what I've been able to do in service and in my recovery is build relationships and deepen them so much. And I have been clean for a very long time, and I have had the joy of meeting people, and I've had the opportunity to do continuing service with a lot of those same people over this Zoom pandemic. And so while I would certainly love to get out and get to, oh, my phone's beeping. Certainly love to get out and meet people in person again. I'm perfectly fine staying in, going to meetings this way. You know, I'm gonna have to get a, what is it, 34-year medallion somehow, but we've got medallions that they're giving away, that we're giving away. I mean, my home group, we mail key tags to people if they want them. We make do. And if anybody questions how talented our fellowship is, I mean, we adopted virtual just immediately after the pandemic started. It wasn't a question. My region already had hybrid virtual. I'm in Chicagoland. We're a wonderful region. I love it, but we do meet monthly, which is a little too often. But we did allow people to come to our monthly meetings virtually. And now, of course, they're all virtual. Whether we do have a new office and whether we start going back to in person or not, who knows? But for the time being, I hope that with virtual, my relationships can continue to be built and continue to strengthen. You know, another strange thing that why I was chosen for this workshop is I've always been single, so I've never been relation oriented in terms of intimate relationships. But I can't tell you how grateful I am for the recovery and the friends relationships. One of my best friends in recovery, Greg S., many of you know him, is actually from Birmingham and Atlanta. He's now in Chattanooga now, but so I've definitely been to meetings in person in Georgia, and it's really great to be asked to this convention and to speak on this of all days. And I just totally, this day just kind of spaced me until I was reminded by a sponsee who actually got clean on the same day. And he's got 14 years. And so he called me and said, oh yeah, I said, oh, it's your anniversary. He says, yeah, it's your first meeting too. I said, that's right. Here I'm sharing about relationships here at a convention. So I don't have much more to say, but it is a little early. I could tell bad jokes, but I don't think you'd want that. I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share today, and to you know, man, I miss our convention. I'll share about this. And in case you're wondering, the Chicagoland convention regional convention is always in January, and January is a great time to be in Chicago, in case you all are wondering. And believe it or not, we couldn't have the convention this year. Well, that's not a surprise. But the original topic of the convention was the masks have to go. So we, before we canceled it, we realized last spring that we probably have to change that topic, because the only way masks go is if we're meeting like this, at least in my neck of the world. I know it's different elsewhere. But that's sort of where things are here. Yeah, that's really all I have. So thanks so much for letting me share. And I'm sorry I didn't talk as long as I thought I would, but you're probably grateful for that. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for sharing, Louis. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Louis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for Holly as well.
All right.
All right, so there is extra time. So at this time, again, my name is Josh. I'm an addict. At this time, we will open the meeting up. If you would like to share your experience, strength, and hope on the workshop topic, we can do that. Remember to share and be mindful of the time for 3 to 4 minutes. I believe that's what we had listed earlier. So at this time, the meeting is now open.
Yeah, good afternoon, family. My name is Angelo, and I'm an addict.
Angelo.
First, I want to thank the convention for providing this platform for us. And, you know, Louis, you know, when you started talking about being from Chicago, I was reminded of my early recovery. You know, many years ago, I don't remember the young lady's name, but she had come down from Chicago because when I got clean, I got clean through drug court down here. I'm in Miami, Florida, and she had come down here because she was involved with Cook County, and so she had come down here to explore how Cook County. You know, how Miami-Dade had set up their drug court, and they were exploring how they might be able to set it up there in Cook County. And so, you know, I was invited to go up there, so I did go up to Cook County, and things were looking good until some of your local aldermen up there in Cook County got involved, and within a year and a half, the whole freaking thing died. It did not go well, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, that was part of my early recovery, being involved in the Cook County drug court up there. So that was you know, no coincidences. It seems that somebody always seems to have, you know, something that they share that's parallel to my recovery. And with my good friend Holly, you know, when she was talking about her early recovery and small groups, you know, down here in Miami, it was more or less the same thing. In the early 90s, there were not that many meetings. And when she mentioned about going to dinner, you know, same deal. Not that many groups, so, you know, a lot of us, we'd all be going to dinner together. And what made me chuckle was, you know, I can remember one night, you know, I ordered a different dinner than what I normally, you know, ordered. And it's like the whole table was looking at me going like, hey, Ange, why are you ordering that? That's not what you normally order. But that was just because we all went out to dinner together. We all knew what we ate, what we that was, so for me ordering a different dinner, that was like a big deal for all of us. You know, we knew what we had. We knew what, you know, what the things were that we did in our early recovery, because that was just the way it was, you know. And and then, you know, Holly was mentioning about, you know, intimacy. You know, I did not have. I had a lot of female friends in my early recovery, but they were real platonic. I mean, you know, they were good friends. You know, I acknowledge the time. You know, I did not have an intimate relationship until just about 9 years into my recovery, and the woman that I met and fell in love with and married, without getting into any details, I'll just put it this way: my marriage ended tragically, and that was the one intimate relationship that I got into, and like I said, it was a tragic ending to that. But you know what? I didn't have to use over it, and that was because of this fellowship, because I was surrounded by the brothers and sisters in our fellowship, you know, because they came and they uplifted me, and they carried me through the moment, because that's what it was. It may have been tragic, but it was a moment, you know. And I'm still here today, you know, and that's what matters, that I'm still here. And I thank both of you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope. Much love.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Next, we have Nick P. If you'll go ahead, Nick, unmute yourself.
Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm an addict.
Hey, Nick.
Want to start by thanking both of the speakers, Lewis and Holly. You guys were both awesome. It takes a lot of courage to get up in a situation like this. Holly's one of my best friends, and I'm just really, really proud of you. And you guys both did great. So thank you for that. Regarding relationships and then on to networking, I've just got kind of a couple points that I was thinking about. So for me, the concept that we need relationships in our lives, that I need a relationship in my life, and not just one relationship. I saw in the title, it's kind of talked about networking. And so for me, a big part of that is just part of my daily surrender that I know I can't do this on my own. Not only do I need Narcotics Anonymous and the steps, I need the fellowship. And when I start thinking that I don't need that, I'm starting to take my will back, and I'm missing the point of my surrender, which is I have a deadly disease. And, you know, when I came in here, the whole concept that I have is, what am I willing to do today for my recovery? What am I willing to do to stay clean? Am I willing to go to the meeting? Am I willing to work steps? Am I willing to be with my sponsor? Am I willing to do all of these things? And the answer on most days is yes. But a big part of that is, am I willing to pick up the phone and continue to develop these relationships with people? You know, and am I surrendered to that fact that I can't do it on my own? So the other part I was thinking about is just, you know, my experience with relationships is that, and I think that's why Narcotics Anonymous is such a great kind of training ground for us in life. You know, for me, when I'm not okay with myself, I'm not able to have real relationships with anybody. You know, if I'm feeling like I'm a piece of crap, if I'm feeling like I'm not worthy, if I'm feeling apart from, if I'm feeling resentful, if I'm not feeling good inside, it's almost impossible for me to have any true connection with other people. Twofold. One, I don't think I deserve it. But two, you know, when I'm out there lying, cheating, stealing, all of these things that we tend to do in our addiction, guess what? I think everybody else is doing that too, and that they're not genuine. And so, you know, really the starting point for me with relationships is making sure that I'm good inside myself, that I feel good about myself, that I have self-esteem. And when I'm doing the right things on a daily basis, guess what? I tend to give other people the benefit of the doubt. I tend to become more vulnerable with people. I'm not so afraid that people are going to hurt me, and that I need to, you know, go into my cocoon and make sure I'm protecting myself. And so I'm just really grateful for this topic. I'm grateful for all of you guys. I'm from California, and it's awesome to see you guys over in Georgia. And that's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, Brandon.
Addict named Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
First, I'd like to thank Holly and Lewis for sharing. Definitely appreciate that. It was great to hear from you guys. And I also just wanted to share about relationships and the effect it's had on my life. So when I was using, I was a very brave person. So I didn't mind meeting people and interacting with people in my weird, like, antisocial way, right? Didn't have a problem with it as long as they benefited me in some way. Like, I was fine with being around them. When I got clean, I didn't like being around people because I didn't know who I was, and I definitely didn't know who they were. And so it made me feel, I was just vulnerable, like not knowing these people. And especially when I came into the rooms and people made a point to get to know me, I absolutely hated how that felt. But I can also say, my journey into the rooms was through treatment. I went to treatment and I was required to go to at least 3 meetings a week. So that way I could go on my, so I could go home on my weekend visits to my family. So I went, but I found my sponsor there. And then when I got out, he suggested that I go continue making meetings. And he told me about a place out here in Tifton where I could go to make a meeting. Told me there'd be some people there looking for me. To this day, I don't think those people have ever told him I made it, but he knows I made it. But those people who were looking for me have become such an important part of my life because of one instance. One of them said to me, probably I'd been going for about a month, making 1 meeting a week on Sunday. And one of them said to me, do you think you can make just 1 more meeting a week? And I really quickly tried to lie, but I couldn't come up with a lie quick enough on why I couldn't come to 1 more meeting a week. And I was like, yeah, I think I can come to the Friday meeting. And so I started making 2 meetings a week. And it changed my life because I made 2 meetings a week, and then I started making all the meetings they offered that week. And those same people continued to ask me to go to conventions and to celebrations. And I kept telling them no for a year straight until I finally said yes. And it was all because I was afraid. But they cared enough, like they were building a relationship with me, even though I didn't want it. They were building a relationship with me and cared enough about me as the newcomer that they kept asking until I said yes. And it's changed my life because I wouldn't be here at this convention today if those 2 individuals hadn't kept asking, not telling, not trying to force me to go, but they just asked if I wanted to go. And when I said no, they accepted my no. And like, okay, well, we'll ask you next time. So relationships and networking has been extremely influential in my recovery. I would have never made it this far without the people that I've connected with. Thank you all for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Hey, I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Louise.
Hey, my name is Leanne. I'm an addict.
Hey, Leanne.
Thank you guys for everyone that shared. And it's so crazy. I'm glad y'all, my camera was off. I like fell out of my chair. So it's amazing, like every time I hear somebody speak, that I can connect with something that they're sharing. I also came I came aware of this program through drug court. I graduated drug court at the end of January, and I was mandated to do, so many NA meetings. And at first I was just there to get my little paper signed. Like I was not trying to talk to anybody. I was sitting in the back of the room, and I didn't have any desires to use at that point, but I was not trying to connect with these people at all. I'm very much the type of person that I can do it all by myself, and I don't need any help. So letting other people in was was difficult for me. But really, to be honest, it was difficult to get out of my own way, because once I continued to go, I continued to show up, and then one day I started listening. You know, one day I think somebody handed me a reading, and now I couldn't just, you know, it wasn't the mom on the peanut talking when they were reading. I had to listen because I was reading it, and then it became real to me. And it's been amazing to me. Like, we've had a couple of, we're back in person now for my home group, and it's been amazing to me to watch people that have walked in from the street that aren't mandated to be there and are struggling at some point. You know, they're struggling, and these women just engulf them. They just love them. And I've watched these people stay, and it has just blessed my heart so much. And I know that y'all experience the same things that I've experienced. And when we're using, we don't have anybody close to us. And I can honestly say, the longer that I've stayed in these rooms, the more relationships that I have built up, the more intimate and the love that I've experienced for myself, and that I'm able to reciprocate. So I have a pregnant kitty. Okay, Jackson, go away. All right, that's all I got, guys. Thank you for letting me share, and thank you for everybody for their service.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Got kitties galore. All right, so we got a few more minutes, guys. Room for maybe another share or two on the topic. Building relationships, networking, and recovery. If you can't raise your hand and you want to just unmute yourself and introduce yourself, that's quite all right.
Got Tanya J.
Hi, I'm Tanya, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Tanya.
Hey, Tanya.
Hi. So it's interesting because when I came into this meeting, I thought it was going to be how to build relationships in the program. And, you know, there goes my best thinking, right? Like, what I learned is there's all kinds of relationships that I get to work on building. I have 60 days today, so I'm a little, I'm still cloudy, but I'm finding that my higher power kind of puts things in my path. And just because I expect something doesn't mean that that's what I'm really looking for. So I'm just trying to branch out, and like I was like, oh, I should go to this meeting in Georgia, across the country. I'm currently in Los Angeles, and I'm from Seattle. I'm in rehab right now. So I guess building relationships is something that is going to be new for me, and I'm excited to learn about what that looks like for me. And maybe it's not what I thought it looked like. So just showing up and speaking sometimes is the best I can do right now. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Tanya.
Keep coming back.
Yes.
All right, we got, is it Michelle or, yeah, Michelle A?
Hi, family. I'm a grateful addict. My name is Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
I'd like to first thank my higher power for allowing me to make this meeting and sharing this moment in recovery with each and every one of you. For that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you, Holly, and thank you, Lewis, and thanks for all the shares around the room. Like, I was just sitting here and I was thinking of all the wonderful relationships that I've been able to make during my 28 years, 6 months, and 4 days clean. It's been amazing. Like, I came here from isolation and installation. I was married 24 years. My husband My mom died January 19th, 1992. My husband died June 29th, 1992. I got clean August 25th, 1992. And my only son went to prison as a direct result of murdering someone and wound up in a mental institution September 19th, 1992. And I came here and I knew nobody in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. My brother was in a program and invited me there. And from that day to this day, I'm like, I'm amazed at the people in Narcotics Anonymous. I'm amazed at the relationships I've been able to build in Narcotics Anonymous. And the number one relationship that I've been able to build is the relationship with the God that I never understood. And in coming here and listening to you people, like you guys introduced me to the concept of good orderly direction. And that was the first relationship that I could truly, truly say I was able to build. I participated in it. All the relationships that have happened, right, prior to that was people invite me into their life. And so as a direct result of that, my higher power took me to places that I'd never dreamt possible through the program of Narcotics Anonymous. I've been to Germany. I never thought I would ever go to Germany. I was in the first English-speaking German convention, a Black woman from Brooklyn, New York. How was that possible? Only that same higher power that I'm telling you about is who took me there. I've been to Paris. How is that humanly possible? I've been to Egypt. How could that happen? Oman, California, Chicago. These things are relationships only through my higher power was even capable of lining up for me. There wasn't any places that I wanted to go. For sure, I wasn't going to Denmark. No, not the Black girl from Brooklyn, New York, wind up in Copenhagen, Denmark as the main speaker. What the hell? Only the relationships that I built and the people who built the relationship with me gave me opportunities far beyond my imagination. I heard somebody say they were 60. I'm going to be 69 years old next Friday. When I look in the mirror, I say, oh my God, you're an old girl. No, you are an older woman in the process of recovery. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Thank you guys for allowing me to share.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
Brandon,
you.
pull the screen back up, please, sir. All right, thank you for all that participated, especially our workshop speakers and individuals that shared. Thank you for everyone that's helped out in putting on or being a part of the convention. I'm grateful. I'm sure I speak for the rest of us that we are all very grateful for that we have a place to still recover and live this way of life, even during a pandemic. So at this moment, I'd like to close with a moment of silence. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Since you're on my screen, Ray, why don't you go ahead and finish this up with a prayer for us, please. Ray H.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Josh. Let's take a moment of silence for the addict who's still sick and suffering, followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God,
God,
grant
us
the serenity
accept the
to accept the things we cannot change,
courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
All right. Thank y'all for a great way.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Lewis. Great meeting, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Teresa, I'm ready to play that B&Wiz, girl.
I got you, Linda. Enjoy your convention.
I love you. I love you too, darling. I'll see y'all later.
Hey, Linda.
All right, bye.
Michelle, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Hey, Holly,
Yes.
are we there yet?
We're working on it, Angela.
Good job, Josh.
All right, love you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy.
Wow. Hey, we got the guest, we got the speaker coming up in a little while, so make sure you all are looking at your program. Also, remember the 7th tradition, but your speaker's coming up this evening. Again, I have found there's other people, it seems like through different chat forums, is finding other easier ways. But if you go into GRCNA.org and you're logging in via the chat, it takes away a lot of those idiosyncrasies that we're finding out, that people can't find a certain button on their screen or they're having a hard time with it. So instead of having to use the sign in, somebody's asking for a password. I haven't seen a password anywhere. I have no clue. And I'm one of the master admins. I have no clue what y'all are talking about for password. I just,
Ask me for a password the first time I tried to log on.
Yeah. So, and that could happen if you're the first one trying to log in and that host hasn't set the room up yet.
Hello.
That may have been what it was, because I was a little early.
They asked me for a password too.
Same thing.
So I can share some information I found out when I was trying to come on, and they ask you to use the link from your area. And so in using the link from the area, it actually got me into the program part.
Right.
And in the program part, I was able to link directly into the meeting as opposed to having to find out. But what I did was I went up and I clicked on that little shield up in the corner on your screen, right? And I brought that down and I was able to screenshot that to send it to people that I know would want to come to the meetings.
Right.
There's that little green shield up there.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
That's the only
way.
but
the only thing is you can't do that until you get on the meeting.
Right. Somebody's got to already be inside.
That's why
that's the way I got into.
Go through the phone. Go through the phone is easier.
Yep. So we're getting, look, you know what, you know how it is though, for the convention, we are going to have it perfected. And you know when we're going to have it perfected? At exactly 12 o'clock on Sunday when it's we're going to be on it. Ready to go.
But next time.
I know. I love you guys.
Could I ask you this?
The main speaker.
Dude,
hey, Steph.
Yes, ma'am.
When you disable the chat, don't do like I do and forget to re-enable it.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
I was like, oh man.
I did it right as the meeting was ending.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that, Michelle?
Is PayPal the only way to be able to donate?
No.
We're going to share the screen. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, so I don't have that one, but I did put it in the chat. It is in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right.
You got PayPal. You can go in the same thing. Hey, guys, when you go into GRCNA.org, same thing. And instead of clicking Convention Hall, there's another button right next to it that says,
register.
Can you go into GRCNA.org? What's it say?
Register.
Yep. Click on register.
Okay. Thank you.
There it is right there, register. And it will take you through there and you can go in. It says GRCNA. you can scroll down. I think it's somewhere in there you can do a newcomer donation. You got to, yep, newcomer donation right there. So newcomer donation is the same thing. If you're trying to donate, you can do a newcomer donation right there and change your amount. Boom.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And what do the newcomer get with the donation?
Nothing.
Experience, strength, and hope.
Nothing, honey.
The newcomer continues to get the means in which we're able to hold these meetings, so that any addict can lose the desire.
They get to be the most important person at any meeting.
I wasn't being smart. I thought maybe they would get a shirt or a mug or something. That's why I asked.
Honey, love. We gonna give love.
You do that enough, Michelle. I love you.
Love you too, baby.
So how did we do for y'all? Y'all have been to meetings all day. This was my first.
This was my first too. I thought y'all rocked.
We actually, this one, this morning when we started out, there was about a 15 or 20 minute lag from the master admins because we had to reroute the way we were logging in. We have a whole nother area where we come in and log in, and if we try to use the way you guys are logging in, it was recognizing me as Jay. It was kicking Jay out of his room. It was kicking George out of his room, and we were like, "Oh my God!" We all freaked out. And so Jay had to go in and fix all that stuff coming in the back way. And then what we're finding is that until we get in the room is when everybody's starting to ask for passwords and everything. And then when we get in there, if say Michelle and Candace and y'all are literally logging in at the same time, it will hold one of you up. And I've found that it will kick one of you out. And then you have to try to go back in again. So there's a little bit of that. And that's normal when you've got, we're at a couple hundred right now. You got 40 in one room, you got 50 in another, 20 in another. So when you've got all that going along the same platform, there's going to be a little bit of lag here and there. But for the most part, I mean, even after that, we recovered after that 15 or 20 minutes, and we still got in there and shared the message, and then the meeting still ended on time, and we were able to be into our next meeting. So go ahead, Michelle.
My service is done for today, but if you guys need me tomorrow, Josh, just give me a call. I'll be around. I ain't
calling you. You're coming anyway.
And that's what I'm saying. I'll be in the meeting somewhere. Just find me.
Hey, Candace.
So I have a question. The ID that they have on the meeting part of the itinerary. Yeah, not that. They don't have that on the itinerary. On the itinerary, it has individual little boxes for each meeting space, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you click on that, that's when it comes up with an ID.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Now that ID and the password that goes with that ID
is not there.
Hello.
It's not there.
Then you go on to the phone in.
Right.
And you go into the phone in, and the phone in ID and the ID of the actual meeting is two different IDs.
Yeah.
And it has a password for that one. So I've been working this thing. I've been trying to get up in here.
You see what she's talking about, Josh?
I mean, I see what she's talking about, but when a lot of people don't know.
Michelle, where were you saying you go from here?
Okay, you see at the top where it says meeting ID?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down where it says phone in.
Oh, yeah.
Right there, that meeting ID is different. And it has a password. But if you try to use that password for the meeting ID at the top, it doesn't work.
Right.
Yes,
you don't need it. All you got to do is click. Look, hold on a second. So you see that blue join right there where it says join in the blue?
Right. That's what I've been. That's how I've been doing it.
Join via Zoom app, it comes straight in the meeting.
That's how, that's how I've been getting in.
We had to learn that piece. Like, we don't know.
Yeah. And and I get that. And what we've been trying to do, Michelle, each meeting, we're doing this right here. We're trying, like I said, it's going to be Sunday. And everybody's going to know how to do it. It's going to be Sunday at noon. So we're doing our best to at least put that out there. And then on the phone, what happens? See how this is side by side here. It's got the blue over there where it says join, and then it says in the red or whatever where it says join. On the phone, that's underneath. So they got to scroll all the way up. If they'll scroll all the way up, they'll find it.
Yeah.
But if you guys could just keep sharing that every meeting you're in, like you're doing, Michelle, just keep sharing it. We appreciate it. Just giving us that good orderly direction that you said.
Yes.
We get to tap into it at any time. So,
all right, well, I see you guys at the main speaker. I gotta go see my babies.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for your service.
Guys.
All right, everyone. I am going to end this meeting. Thank you all for being here. And we have the in memoriam going on in the Atlanta room right now.
Can we just go there, or we have to log out and go?
Ending this meeting, we'll kick you out, and then you'll go back to the website and click on the link for the in memoriam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for being here.